Session number 61. July 8th, 1981. I am Ra. I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner: could you give me an indication of the instrument's condition? I am Ra. This instrument's vital energies are improving. The physical complex distortions are quite marked at this space-time, and there is a decrease in physical complex energies. Questioner: is there anything in particular that the instrument could do to improve the physical condition? I am Ra. This instrument has two factors affecting its bodily distortions. This is in common with all those which, by seniority of vibration, have reached the green ray level of vibratory consciousness complexes. The first is the given in-streamings, which vary from cycle to cycle in predictable manner. In this particular entity, these cyclical complexes at this space-time nexus are not favorable for the physical energy levels. The second ramification of condition is that which we might call the degree of mental efficiency in use of catalysts provided for the learning of program lessons in particular and the lessons of love in general. This instrument, unlike some entities, has some further distortion due to the use of pre-incarnative conditions. Questioner: can you expand on what you meant by the cycling in-streamings of energy? I am Ra. There are 4 types of cycles, which are those given in the moment of entry into incarnation. There are, in addition, more cosmic and less regularized inpourings, which, from time to time, affect a sensitized mind-body-spirit complex. The 4 rhythms are, to some extent, known among your peoples and are called biorhythms. There is a 4th cycle, which we may call the cycle of gateway of magic of the adept or of the spirit. This is a cycle which is completed in approximately 18 of your diurnal cycles. The cosmic patterns are also a function of the moment of incarnative entrance and have to do with your satellite you call the moon, your planets of this galaxy, the galactic sun, and in some cases, the in-streamings from the major galactic points of energy flow. Questioner: would it be helpful to plot the cycles for the instrument and attempt to have these sessions at the most favorable points with respect to the cycle? I am Ra. To that specific query, we have no response. It may be noted that the 3 in this triad bring in this energy pattern, which is Ra. Thus, each energy input of the triad is of note. We may say that while these information systems are interesting, they are in sway only insofar as the entity or entities involved have not made totally efficient use of catalyst, and, therefore, instead of accepting the, shall we say, negative or retrograde moments or periods without undue notice, have the distortion towards the retaining of these distortions in order to work out the unused catalyst. It is to be noted that psychic attack continues upon this entity, although it is only effective at this time in physical distortions towards discomfort. We may suggest that it is always of some interest to observe the roadmap, both of the cycles and of the planetary and other cosmic influences, in that one may see certain wide roads or possibilities. However, we remind that this group is an unit. Questioner: is there some way that we could, as a unit then, do something to reduce the effect of the psychic attack on the instrument and optimize the communicative opportunity? I am Ra. We have given you the information concerning that which aids this particular mind-body-spirit complex. We can speak no further. It is our opinion, which we humbly offer, that each is in remarkable harmony with each for this particular third-density illusion at this space-time nexus. Questioner: I want to ask a few questions Jim had here about the healing exercises. The first is, in the healing exercise concerning the body, what do you mean by the disciplines of the body having to do with the balance between love and wisdom in the use of the body in its natural functions? I am Ra. We shall speak more briefly than usual, due to this instrument's use of the transferred energy. We, therefore, request further queries if our reply is not sufficient. The body complex has natural functions. Many of these have to do with the unmanifested self and are normally not subject to the need for balancing. There are natural functions which have to do with other self. Among these are touching, loving, the sexual life, and those times when the company of another is craved to combat the type of loneliness which is the natural function of the body, as opposed to those types of loneliness which are of the mind-emotion complex, or of the spirit. When these natural functions may be observed in the daily life, they may be examined in order that the love of self and love of other self versus the wisdom regarding the use of natural functions may be observed. There are many fantasies and stray thoughts which may be examined in most of your peoples in this balancing process. Equally to be balanced is the withdrawal from the need for these natural functions with regard to other self. On the one hand, there is an excess of love. It must be determined whether this is love of self or other self, or both. On the other hand, there is an overbalance towards wisdom. It is well to know the body complex so that it is an ally, balanced and ready to be clearly used as a tool. For each bodily function may be used in higher and higher, if you will, complexes of energy with other self. No matter what the behavior, the important balancing is the understanding of each interaction on this level with other selves, so that whether the balance may be love-wisdom or wisdom-love, the other self is seen by the self in a balanced configuration, and the self is thus freed for further work. Questioner. Second question. Could you give an example of how feelings affect portions of the body and the sensations of the body? I am Ra. It is nearly impossible to speak generally of these mechanisms, for each entity of proper seniority has its own programming. Of the less aware entities, we may say that the connection will often seem random as the higher self continues producing catalysts until a bias occurs. In each programmed individual, the sensitivities are far more active and, as we have said, that catalyst not used fully by the mind and spirit is given to the body. Thus, you may see in this entity the numbing of the arms and the hands, signifying this entity's failure to surrender to the loss of control over the life. Thus, this drama is enacted in the physical distortion complex. In the questioner, we may see the desire not to be carrying the load it carries given as physical manifestation of the soreness of those muscles for carrying used. That which is truly needed to be carried is a pre-incarnative responsibility which seems highly inconvenient. In the case of the scribe, we see a weariness and numbness of feelings ensuing from lack of using catalyst designed to sensitize this entity to quite significant influxes of unfamiliar distortion complexes of the mental, emotional, and spiritual level. As the numbness removes itself from the higher or more responsive complexes, the bodily complex distortions will vanish. This is true also of the other examples. We would note at this time that the totally efficient use of catalyst upon your plane is extremely rare. Questioner. Could you tell me how you're able to give us information like this with respect to the first distortion, or law of confusion? I am Ra. Each of those is already aware of this information. Any other reader may extract the heart of meaning from this discussion without interest as to the example's sources. If each was not fully aware of these answers, we could not speak. It is interesting that in many of your queries, you ask for confirmation rather than information. This is acceptable to us. Questioner. This brings out the point of the purpose for the physical incarnation, I believe, and that is to reach a conviction through your own thought processes as to a solution to problems and understandings in a totally unbiased or totally free situation, with no proof at all or anything that you would consider proof, proof being a very poor word in itself. Can you expand on my concept? I am Ra. Your opinion is an eloquent one, although somewhat confused in its connections between the freedom expressed by subjective knowing and the freedom expressed by subjective acceptance. There is a significant distinction between the two. This is not a dimension of knowing, even subjectively, due to the lack of overview of cosmic and other inpourings which affect each and every situation which produces catalyst. The subjective acceptance of that which is at the moment and the finding of love within that moment is the greater freedom. That known as the subjective knowing without proof is in some degree a poor friend, for there will be anomalies, no matter how much information is garnered due to the distortions which form third density. Questioner. Okay, the third question I have here is, Could you give examples of bodily polarity? I am Ra. Within the body, there are many polarities which relate to the balancing of the energy centers of the various bodies of the unmanifested entity. It is well to explore these polarities for work in healing. Each entity is, of course, a potential polarized portion of an other self. Questioner. The last question here says, it would seem the proper balancing exercises for all the sensations of the body would be some form of inactivity, such as meditation or contemplation. Is this correct? I am Ra. This is largely incorrect. The balancing requires a meditative state in order for the work to be done. However, the balancing of sensation has to do with an analysis of the sensation with a special respect to any unbalanced leaning between the love and the wisdom, or the positive and the negative. Then, whatever is lacking in the balanced sensation is, as in all balancing, allowed to come into the being after the sensation is remembered and recalled in such detail as to overwhelm the senses. Questioner. Could you tell me why it is important for the appurtenances and other things to be so carefully aligned with respect to the instrument, and why just a small ruffle in the sheet by the instrument causes a problem with the reception of Ra? I am Ra. We may attempt an explanation. This contact is narrow band. The instrument is highly sensitive. Thus, we have good entry into it and can use it to an increasingly satisfactory level. However, the trance condition is, shall we say, not one which is without toll upon this instrument. Therefore, the area above the entrance into the physical complex of this instrument must be kept clear to avoid discomfort to the instrument, especially as it re-enters the body complex. The appurtenances give to the instrument sensory input and mental visualization which aid in the trance beginning. The careful alignment of these is important for the energizing group in that it is a reminder to that support group that it is time for a working. The ritualistic behaviors are triggers for many energies of the support group. You may have noticed more energy being used in workings as the number has increased due to the long-term, shall we say, effect of such ritualistic actions. This would not aid another group, as it was designed for this particular system of mind-body-spirit complexes, and especially the instrument. There is enough energy transferred for one more long query. We do not wish to deplete this instrument. Questioner. Okay, then I will ask this one. Could you tell us the purpose of the frontal lobes of the brain and the conditions necessary for their activation? I am Ra. The frontal lobes of the brain will, shall we say, have much more use in fourth density. The primary mental emotive condition of this large area of the so-called brain is joy, or love, in its creative sense. Thus, the energies which we have discussed in relationship to the pyramids, all of the healing, the learning, the building, and the energizing, are to be found in this area. This is the area tapped by the adept. This is the area which, working through the trunk and root of mind, makes contact with intelligent energy, and, through this gateway, intelligent infinity. Are there any queries before we leave this instrument? Questioner. Only is there anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? I am Ra. This instrument is somewhat distorted, but each is doing well. You are conscientious. We thank you for continuing to observe the alignments and request that, on each level, you continue to be this fastidious, as this will maintain the contact. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, my friends, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
I'm going to stop sharing for now so we could talk about that. Anybody want to take the floor? Got something they want to discuss? And then I want to go show you something afterwards. Hi, more faces.
I'll jump in if anyone isn't. Straight off the bat, 61-2, the first real question that they start with after the instrument's condition. Is there anything in particular that the instrument could do to improve the physical condition? While that's usually a pretty benign question and gets a pretty normal sort of answer, this particular one is a very interesting one because it goes on to explain how there's two factors affecting bodily distortions. This is common with all those by seniority of vibration, which have reached a green or ray level of vibratory consciousness complexes. First is given in streamings, which vary from cycle to cycle in predicted manner. Entity, cyclical complexes at this space-time nexus are not favorable for the physical energy levels. The second ramification condition, what we might call the degree of mental efficiency in use of catalysts provided for the learning of programmed lessons in particular and the lessons of love in general. Now, this is very specific sounding information, but while I was listening to it, I was also given a couple of visions about something that I talk about a lot. Yeah, biorhythm is amazing stuff. But, you know, when we're thinking about how we help to serve the world and why we want to go inward rather than outward, I think this really touches on something that I would like to bring to light a little bit more for those who have the capacity to understand what we're talking about here. In the sense that when we look around at the world at the moment, I'm going to use language that might contain a couple of prejudices or assumptions, but that's specifically so for context of explanation. But when we look around the world, we've got a whole bunch of people who are seemingly having a hard time, who are still awake, who are still asleep, and having a little bit of a rough time waking up and coming to the light of the circumstance, and that's their choice. You know, they're perfectly allowed to dwell in illusion or not in illusion, and on the other side of the scale, service to self or wherever they find themselves. That's their prerogative, as Miss Spears once said. But the content that I like to remind people about is how these constant in-streamings have given information from cycle to cycle in predictable manner. That's very much a good explanation of, as I go on to talk about in further questions, the planets and solar system, the central sun, and all this other sort of stuff. When the time is right, I see the human mind through all of the research that I've done in neuroscience and unified physics. I see it unlock and open up, you know, and these things are caused by, in my observations, majoritively by the things going on in the universe rather than, say, you waking somebody up. You know, in that sense, I say to people all the time, you know, those who are ready to wake up will wake up and they'll seek the information and take it whenever they're ready for it. But what's going to make them ready for it is, if not themselves, by their own choice, then the universe. It will end their current cycle in their agreement process in whatever form that they've set up in that fashion. And then they'll come back in a new body or a new being or as a new walk-in, with a lot more of a higher position to observe things from rather than from a traditionally lower incarnate system. This is tied in with the idea that after 2012, you know, and if I recall correctly, I think Ra was semi of the opinion that we weren't going to make it past 2012, that back in early 80s, that was probably going to be the most likely time for the harvest to take place. And the fact that it hasn't really, I think, shows that we've opened up enough to allow the transformation of the universe to come into us and then back out of us again in order to represent and recatalyze this for others in our environment. Does that make any sense? Does anybody else feel that or correlate with that at all?
I just want by that from my archives, Carla, who was out the 12, and he thought that mass, but Kua, Ron, and that we they kind of specifically they said that it would then 900 years. That's the people who are incarnated would be able to continue third density to like, which densities up to on Earth it's used, and right now, third of
I'm
people are
yeah.
dual activated, so they're in the third ray bodies,
We're
but
having a hard time hearing you,
access
honey.
to
You're breaking
the
up a lot. And I feel bad because I thought maybe it was just me, but I see someone else wrote too. We're having difficulty hearing you. It's breaking up and we want to hear what you have to say. I just didn't want you to have to go too far.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, put in the chatter.
Oh, we'll wait. We will.
I
I was
did
looking
catch
for.
one part.
Did you catch some of
I
it?
did catch one
Oh,
part,
okay.
and you're right in the sense that, you know, it's not the people who are choosing to continue their 3D journey that are going to be coming back again. Those are the levels of different walk-ins that we find, you know. But some people who get lost, yeah, the risk of becoming a walk-in is that you get lost with the storyline, and then you start a new karmic cycle, you know, which is the major reason why the negative entities or the service to self entities have an issue with being walk-ins, because then they might fall into the trap of switching sides at that point, you know. So yeah, no, that was part of the initial pre-frame of the question, which is that there's going to be some assumptions, and the words that I use are going to have holes in them for those obvious, semi-obvious aspects of, like, you know, walk-ins are walk-ins, and people who are 3D are going to continue their 3D story somewhere else. But
Oh, can you guys see that? Or yeah, you could.
yeah.
Okay. I believe it was Carla who was confused about 2012. I did not find Ra or Quo. Is that how you say it? I always feel like I say it wrong. The Federation says that these who incarnated in third density will be able to continue until the end of their life expectancy, which is up to 900 years.
Yeah. The focus point of my discussion is I want to ask your opinions on whether or not you find in your observations that as we experience better space weather, is a very lay term for that. Meanwhile, we have an increasing amount of dual activated people, about 33%. The dual activated people are the very interesting ones at this time, which have third density bodies and access to fourth density mind frame. Exactly. And that's what I mean by, you know, things are picking up. You know, back then, if you listen to Ra, and a lot of the references, it does seem to be very, well, the whole thing's going to end pretty soon anyway. So, you know, you've just got to do what you do. It's like when they talk about the questions of whether or not the book is going to help, and Ra says, well, it's not really about that. It's about you guys, you know. So focus on that kind of thing. But my to bring it back to the context is, do you find that as we go through the solar cycles and the new solar events and everything else like that, the adjustments that the sun shoots towards the Earth all the time and the way that it looks after the planet Earth clearly seems to me have a major impact on the capacity for people to open up to new material like this? More so than us saying, wake up, you know?
Anybody else want to take it? I just don't want to be the one talk. They're all like, yes, I agree, I concur.
Yeah, it's kind of like suddenly we've been talking all these years and nobody's been listening, and now we're saying the same things that I said, and suddenly they're hearing it. So, yes,
yeah, what has changed for that to happen? And it is exactly. I feel like nobody. Man, you're a quiet bunch tonight. Okay, Robert.
Yeah. On that, the topic of the emissions from the sun, because there's something called the solar current sheet, which is wrapped into the magnetic field of the sun. And I believe it's every roughly 14 days. I'm not exactly sure the number right now. But the polarity of the magnetic field that the Earth is in because of the sun, reverses, goes plus minus, minus plus every couple of weeks or so. So there's always these magnetic reversals that we are subjected to, and those would seem to be excellent catalyst motivators, I think, because they're like energizing something. And then when Ra is mentioning cosmic influences and all catalysts having some influence, whether cosmic or lesser, and we are entering into a galactic current sheet event, our whole solar system is entering into a period of magnetic reversal on a galactic scale. And it can be frightening because it'll cause the poles of the Earth to flip. The whole Earth will actually just kind of like feel the effects of that. So it's going to be an amazing event, and it can happen at any instant. So I know we're all just anxious for this to happen. It's going to be exciting.
Does anyone know Matthias De Stefano?
No.
Yes? No. Okay. So I've been I don't want to say following him, but when I encounter what he had to say, a lot of resonance came for me, and I want to add that there's been a event last week in Capilla del Monte where he completed his mission to reactivate the planetary grid, so that heaven can come on earth and that all humans can now receive the information, the cosmic information, so that we can now move on to the new earth. So everything that you guys are saying right now, it's happening now, because me, I did the whole year where he was in Egypt. From my home, I was present as well for the Egypt event last February, which was the beginning of the closing of all this. And last week this is it. Last week, 22nd of November, was the last portal day where it was directly linked to the planetary grid. The next portal day for the planetary grid is going to happen in 1,000 years. So in the year 3000. So now what he was saying last Tuesday is the era of the spiritual awakening is completed. Now we're moving on to the social awakening. This is where we're at, which is where we're going to start seeing a lot of dismantling of a lot of old systems. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Susanna, because that's exactly, I agree. I was like, I wrote her, I'm like, you should share this because it's been very much, it was aligning with a bunch of stuff. And this is what we went and did all this together. That's the same thing when I got super sick. I don't get sick, guys. I don't get sick, nothing. And I just feel so under the weather, like, and it's since Wednesday, right after it happened. I'm like, okay, well, this shift, I'm feeling it. I'm extra sensitive.
Because me, Israel, and another friend of ours, we actually did something for that event as well. So, Trevor, you okay?
I was like, hang on a minute. There was something going on Wednesday. What was it? And then I remembered, oh, that's right. I woke up and my face was alive with this giant abscess that had grown up into my cheek here and was penetrating into my vision field.
Oh my goodness.
That is, oh, well, that's it.
Into the medication.
I woke up like this.
Yeah. Technically, Wednesday was the first day of the new energy. Yes.
the last groupings of the old leaving my body, clearly, you know.
That makes sense. That's exactly what, when she pointed it out to me earlier, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It just makes sense. Anybody have something else they wanted to point out in it all?
I don't know if
Oh, we can hear
it's
you.
working.
Try it
You
again.
okay? uh, uh, just gonna say the fourth is more light and it's harder
You
to
could
hide
try
things.
turning off,
It's not going.
your video. It seems to be a feedback. I mean, not a feedback,
Turning off my
bandwidth. Yeah, maybe.
Okay, can you hear me? Maybe. Yeah, I was with the into the energy. It's to see. Um,
That's a bummer.
Damn.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it is. It's a big
friend.
bummer because we know that
Oh.
everybody.
I know, I love the input. I don't want to make
Exactly.
it the type.
I just want to add, Andre, you wrote about the respiratory system. I have, yes, I'm known to have asthma, and you're right there on it. You're right there on it, what you wrote. Let me read it for those that didn't read it. He said, upper respiratory issues usually relate to either too much pressure on the self or not taking enough rest for yourself. Yes, guilty,
Facts. That's
guilty.
true. At least we can own it. Let me see what I wanted, if there's anything else. By all means, guys, just if you have something to say, go ahead. You don't have to wait for me. I'm just looking.
Well,
to see if
Desiree, we can follow. I think there's a point a little below towards the end where since we're talking about illnesses and ailments and all this, remember there was a part at the end where it was describing, hang on, I'm going to find it again.
Are you talking about the part where it was when
Yeah.
one person that
Number
we were
7, question 7, I think.
Yeah,
you're
I think
talking
it's
about
7. Yeah, about how
feelings
balancing.
affect portions of
yes,
the body.
that's it. Yes.
Which
Give
one
an
was it?
example on how feelings affect portions of the body and the sensation of the
Mhm.
body. Yeah, because I know that we elaborated a bit on that, and we can actually, since we're
Just wanna
talking about
pull it up.
ailments, you know.
Well, by all means, go right ahead. I'm just trying to find it on my thing because you know it doesn't say. Oh, 6.1.7. Got it.
That's it. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Which was when,
Yeah, I got it. What would you like? Because I mean, that's pretty much.
yeah, but that's it. I just wanted to kind of conclude that with
Yes.
what we had written. I just don't have the writings with me. You wrote it down.
I didn't. I only did the first
Oh, you
one.
didn't? Oh,
No,
okay,
I didn't
I'm
write
sorry.
anything.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
okay. So we threw out like this how obviously when we don't listen, you know, when we're too attached to certain aspects of the reality and there's a blockage, obviously it's gonna reflect on
It shows up in our physical.
yeah, on the physical, yes.
Which again goes right back to that whole time when I said about the ovarian cancer and
Yeah.
my past horrible relationship with my mother most of my life. And I get ovarian cancer twice. No ovarian cancer in my family, none whatsoever on any side, anything. No idea what started it, nothing. And it just made sense that because it's your womb, you know, and that's a reflection of your maternal relationship. And it just made so much sense. I only wish I knew more back then, but it's okay. It's all right. But it makes sense. It really does. These things do show up in your body. You just have to listen. And I guess to know where to look, because I didn't know this information back when this happened to me.
Huge. No, I'm just finishing a neuroscience course, and the most amazing part about it is how they're using new updated information to talk about the subject. The one that is very similar to what you're talking about is the study in breast cancer. So we know that that they call it a breast cancer gene. It's not exactly, because it's only present in about 7% of breast cancer cases.
Oh, the BRCA1 too? The BRCA1
Something
you're
like
talking
that.
about, that gene?
The code names, I'm in
Yeah,
flux
it's like
with them all the
BRCA1
time,
and
so I can't
BRCA2.
remember them all. Yep. But
Yes.
that one in particular has, if I recall, it's actually reversed. So everybody who has that gene has like a 7% chance to develop into breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But it also develops into ovarian cancer and cervical cancer in some cases as well. So it's definitely a feminine type of gene rather than a breast specific gene. However, that's not an explanation. That's the description of processes, not the cause of it. Seemingly what the massive cause of breast cancer is being too nice.
I guess that's why I didn't get breast cancer. No, stop. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Little laugh about it. Sorry. No.
Oh, but that's what we're talking about.
That makes sense.
How
Yeah, that's cool.
How our energies trigger, activate, deactivate the gene expression of our DNA, which then activates or deactivates these things that we call cancers and other issues that we experience. Yeah. So science is finally catching up with the law of one. Yay. Some way.
All right, from Soul Speak by Julia Cannon. The uterus, or the reproductive organs in general, is a creativity or female power zone. This is where lives are created and protected until they are ready to be in the outside world. Any problems in this area will represent issues with your creativity and or your personal power. They may also indicate a reluctance to accept your feminine qualities and expression. Also along this line, you might be feeling guilt and or fear in the expression of the feminine quality. You are not feeling creative. It can also indicate you want to have children or the feeling guilty over loss of pregnancies. Okay, so there's so much in that resonates, and I'm gonna tell you why. I was in the military for 6 years. I was in the military when all of this was going on. I was very, that feminine quality was totally like not there. I was sergeant, by the book, how things go. That makes sense. A lot, even the last part of it. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I accept my feminine qualities now.
This kind of stuff is really important because it helps others reflect too. Like we're talking about the feminine aspect, that something I've been aware of for a little while now. I've had massive problem identifying with being a man my whole life, not because I've got an issue with the biology of it, but because there's a lot of dickheads out there. The reputation of men and in the bedroom, for instance, I've always wanted to detach from that and say, well, actually, I like to take focus on awareness into the bedroom and not just make it a traumatic experience that keeps repeating for some people experience. So I've been aware for a while now that my disidentification with general male energy in the world might result in problems with my areas down there, prostate cancer and other things like that. So I've really been trying to come back around on this and say, well, no, it's not masculine energy clearly that I have a problem with. It's just ignorance and prejudice and these other typical things that we all have problems with.
That makes sense.
And mine would be associated a lot with guilt, being raised Catholic. So feeling guilty for experiencing pleasure of any sort, feeling guilty for even having sex in an unmarried way, because that's supposed to be a crime. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just those kind of things too that we have to deal with as society's impact upon our way of thinking.
Which is a big issue. Anybody else? No? Oh, I think you're talking, Stephen. You're just muted. Let me ask you to unmute.
I said, for years and years and years, I thought I couldn't get divorced because of the Bible. There was no infidelity. That my
Yeah, no
ex-wife had a
divorce.
serious drinking problem, and I was so stuck on the way the Bible had taught me.
We have another friend that's usually with us. She had the same, like a lot of this back and forth as well with her growth and her spiritual journey with religion and what she was brought up in and to believe, and then kind of refining for herself her truths to it, and then bringing it back and trying to be in her truth with it all, but also with the family and their belief still in these systems, and then trying to balance that for herself and being okay with believing what she believes in and what resonates for her and whatever. So it's a struggle, the back and forth thing.
It's the learning process.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm currently learning. Basically, I feel like I'm starting over again. I just ended a relationship of about 28 years long. Just a year ago, it ended, and at my age of 60 years old, and now I feel like I'm starting over again. So it's a new experiment, and I hope to be able to work on some of the techniques I've been reading in the Law of One. Hopefully I have enough green ray potential in me to experience those things I've read about.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
I hope so, yes.
The potential is not the issue. You have unlimited green ray potential.
True. That's, yeah. It's my willingness to be able to use it.
But I think that you even exploring and saying that shows your willingness too. You know?
I have an awareness, yes.
It's scary though, huh?
Well, it's scary, just the topic of love itself, because I feel like I'm sort of like numb. I think a lot of men might have that problem. They have like a more callous, numb sense of what love is, especially us older generation, when we were taught to like not cry, don't express yourself, just walk it off, and stuff like that.
Walk it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so trying to learn how to actually be open and feel those feelings without
Correct. Being honest with a partner. I've not really been honest with any partner up to this point. And it's if I wanted to have regrets, that would be one of them. But I'm not going to allow that with myself. And but my next, if I get another chance at a partner, I'm going to do my best to be more open and honest.
Oh, that's awesome. That is. And you started being open and honest with yourself, though, to even acknowledge those things, right? And you're not beating yourself up for them either. You know,
Right. That's the old Catholic thing. Beating myself up was the old religious thing, which I'm abandoning over the past decades. Yes, it's a self-awareness effort along that line, yes, and being more forgiving of myself. As we learn, forgiving yourself is awesome for your karma. I mean, it helps erase all those karmic, I was going to say mistakes, but there are no mistakes. Yeah, forgiveness of self, love yourself, look in the mirror and love yourself. Like we talked about last week, too, when Trevor opened his heart up about self-love, and I totally agree that, sometimes it'd be hard to look in the mirror and say you love what you see. We have to be able to do that. And
I didn't do that. Oh.
Yeah. In question
Right.
6 here, they talks about the self-love. Just today. If you look, Desiree, in question 6.
Where he talks about the issues found in each individual in the group.
That's it. Yeah.
On Andrew, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it correct, but Andrew or Andre added into the comments as well a very valuable point, which is while we're trying to activate green and use green, don't forget to keep balanced all the ones below it. You know, you can't express love if you don't feel safe. Absolutely integrally. So make sure you don't disregard the other centers in order to favor one over the others. I mean, the heart would be the one to favor, clearly, but at the same time, it actually isn't any better than any of the others. It's just where we are centered around at the moment.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the self-love thing, though, because honestly, I want to say 4 years ago. So when I was 30, I did not know what self-love was until I was 30. You know, I grew up thinking, I looked at me, oh, cute. Yeah, I love me. Had no idea until I had this continuous bad relationships, bad everything, like accepting of just stuff that nobody should accept. And I couldn't, and I'm gonna ask myself, why me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I'm like, had a big moment, like, hold on a minute there. That's the problem. I literally had no self-love. For me to even internalize somebody else's treatment towards me as if it was my fault and stuff like that. But you just don't realize it. You know, we only know what we know and what you're taught, how you're brought up, how everything, right? So my vision of what love was, I mean, it wasn't the right way. That's just what I was given and taught. So it took me 30 years to figure it out, but I'm okay with that. At least I figured it out, you know, and then since then, it's just been the last 4 years have been phenomenal, just in general, being with myself, you know? So that's like, yeah. Yep. I love this group. We're just a bunch of feelers and sharers. I love it. I do appreciate that, though.
But I totally appreciate this. I feel great that I'm able to open myself up like this and tell you such things, and that having the other chakras balanced. So I know right now, like I said, I'm 60 years old. This is like the first time I've been not in a relationship since 1980 something, and I'm living in a city or a town I've never been in before. I moved here by random. I'm unemployed by choice, even though I'm running out of money. All these things are just
all these catalysts.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it all as this is wonderful. I mean, it's all part of a great illusion, of course, but it could be stressful if you let it. But it's wonderful. It's all wonderful catalyst. And as you can see, I've got my best friend with me here too.
I know, super cute.
Yeah, he's the best. So I do have some love from this guy in my life.
Again, it just shows all the stuff that you just named that's put you on this path that you're on now. Literally, the universe, everything does line up and put you exactly where you need to be for you to be on this journey.
Right in front of you.
All right. I'm going to do mine right in front of you, so it's too easy. Okay, they've been writing over here. Let's see. I don't know if you guys have been seeing the chat, but Israel, can you go ahead and just read yours for me so then I don't have to read out loud? I'll sound dumb.
I'll just say, Andre brought up an article or something, and part of the thing that we're all trying to talk about and discuss here is that, you know, we all see it, we're all aware, and it's how is culture and how is society a whole, or the global us, dealing with it, contriving it, what catalyst is it bringing in? What does it create? What does it touch? And I find that to be, it's one of those things like Trevor was saying, where it's this change is happening. It's occurring for everybody, period. It's where is this energy going to increase their positive or negative, let's say, like karma, in order to facilitate their like awakening. So it's one of these things that it's everyone's talking about it now, and coming from different avenues and looking at different types of data and different and finding the correlations in between. It's one of those things that makes it funny to see, like Carla knew. She'd already, Raw know. He talks about it, brought it up. There's another book I looked at too, just a little bit ago. We did, what was it? Something about Venus. That was done. It was done before Raw Contact, and so very much similar in nature. And it's one of these things where
Voices of Venus.
Yeah. And then like now science is catching up.
Actually, didn't somebody bring that up in this? Yes, we listened to it.
Yes, we
Trevor,
did.
We did. I'm like, oh yeah, somebody here did. Sorry, Israel, go right ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that was it.
Here, let me look. By all means, feel free. Anybody else? TJ, do you have any questions today? Oh, if you want to bring up the bio, you want to bring it up, you can. I'll let you share.
No, you can bring it up. You were already going there.
The biorhythm.
I found it interesting for other people to be able to look at and kind of play with to figure it out for themselves. So it's on LL Research. So.
There it is. So when we were reading this stuff, we were able to click on a link and it took us to our whole biorhythm calculator. So of course I put my name and stuff in there. I'm just gonna click on everything because fun. Why not? Calculate. So this is based on, oh, wait a minute. It's got the wrong, yeah, no, my birthday's not the 10th. Got to make sure it's right if I'm sharing it. Okay. All right, hold on. Go down. There you go. Okay, so you see these are all the days of the months, and it just shows for me where everything with alignment with all those different inputs, how it affects me. So my emotional stability, stress, my physical self, all these different things. What just popped up? Somebody's trying to get in. iPhone, admit. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then you can kind of follow along and see where you're at. So where things are gonna, for instance, let's see, which one was, all right, the emotional biorhythm. So based on where it's at, when you're feeling most creative, most loved, warm, whatever. So let's see, what was I for emotional for today? I'm at a negative 63, guys. So, feeling most creative, most loving and warm, and you're probably more open in your relationships. But if it was on a different aspect of it, I'd be more inclined to be withdrawn, less cooperative. It's just a way that I can follow along with myself and be more in tune with myself as well, and how everything affects me. In this example, obviously, the rest of you guys, it would be different because you have different birthdays, but I don't know if Susanna or Israel wanted to say anything about that, or any of you guys other that might know about this stuff, but we just kind of discovered it today. So we're like, oh, so cool, little kids in a candy store.
The first time that I come across biorhythm, I actually come across it through Casio, the calculator company. So Casio, which is these really cold, hard calculator kind of guys, they've made their own biorhythm calculators. So then I'm sitting there going, hang on a minute, that's a bit weird. Maybe I should start paying attention to this. So I followed along for a little while, but Casio just do the intellectual, emotional, and physical. So as soon as I saw your page there, I was like, what? Intuition, spiritual awareness, aesthetic. Yes, that's the good stuff. But then to see the wall chart like that and how they play about, you know, especially when you've got 7 of them like that. And that's beautiful when you've got the flows and the waves and everything else like this. Spirit Science does a fantastic episode on it. But when it all collapses into one point, like there will be a point somewhere in your life, maybe multiple points, where all 7 of these things are reaching, you know, I don't think it's the height. I think it's the middle line that we're aiming for, if I recall correctly, because height means to the left and the bottom means to the right. It doesn't mean more or less. It's just a visual representation of it. But yeah, it's just like Ra says, it's not something that you need to live your life by, because if you listen and understand your catalysts, then you're aware of these rhythms internally through your own observations. But if you're not aware of the internals, then external tools can be used to help you gain awareness into these insights, which will teach you then how to look inwards. As long as you remember that, okay, have a good one. As long as you then remember, see you, Andre. Yeah, good idea. Lives are fantastic like that, you know. But yeah, as long as we remember the tools are tools and not there to replace our capacity. You know, they're meant to empower us, not become a dependency for us. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it for me when we found it, I mean, I've done other stuff and I found other things that talked about the biorhythm, but it's the biorhythm. That's your own personal like chart, so to speak, that any other catalysts come in and then affect you by that, depending on the day by day. So it's one of those things where, like you said, it's not something to know or like memorize, but when you can look at it, maybe you had a bad day or maybe a bunch of bad things happened, and you look at where you were at emotionally versus some other day that bad things happened, and where you were on the other spectrum of things, you're like, oh, well, these days, that makes sense that I would react or respond this way, or I would not take on this catalyst the way I was supposed to or designed to for myself. Like I didn't,
aid you and not being so hard on yourself for it, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Or you would have handled the situation better for yourself, you know, again, in retrospect, right? So it's all learning.
I am still curious. Oh, go ahead.
And add same too with like astrology and solar weather and yeah, numerology and all these other things. You know, they're just there to help guide. And yeah, you were going to say, Desiree?
No. That was, yeah, that's good. I was going back to the part in there where they were talking about the 4th one. And we went and looked it up. It's not going to be for a few. So we're like, darn it, we can't talk about it. But the 4th, what do you call it, guys? You know what I'm talking about, YouTube over there. Cycle. Yeah, the 4th cycle, yeah. We were looking at the chart and trying to figure it out, and I don't know. I'm just curious. We gotta wait, unfortunately, till 64, but
right. We're in a good spot right now. 61, 62, 63, and 64. Those are all pretty dense. They cover a lot of that really good material where you get to be like, aha, yeah.
Do not live your life based on your horoscope.
Are you sure? I thought I could take that. I was just gonna Google that real quick every day and then just whatever it told me.
But there's some people out there that really do.
No kidding.
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy astrology. I don't exactly do my own charts or anything and live it on a daily, but I regularly use it as a context reference point to then expand from. You know, being aware, obviously, always at any point in time that, you know, while you might have, I'm a Virgo, so while I have a lot of token negative traits, the first thing I did when I encountered astrology was I went, being a Virgo, oh, I've got a list of things I need to work on. Yes, and that was
have you done
personal development.
Are you familiar with the human design?
Yes, and Gene Keys and the rest of them too. Yeah, so I've just been diving into human design.
I don't know that one.
Fantastic. Yeah, and then you got Gene Keys is a fantastic one. I would say the two leading personal development models at the moment is Gene Keys and human design. Myers-Briggs, everything, even those random quizzes that you get on Facebook every now and then seem to be able to map personalities based on choices and things like this. But I went through a lot of change recently, and I had a friend who was my best friend for a long, long time, until I realized that he wasn't my best friend, that my idea of him was my best friend, and that he was actually completely different from the idea that I held of him. But we spent a lot of time going through cycles and charts and mapping all sorts of interesting things out. So this is just geometry. You've got the square, the hexagon, the octagon, dodecadon, and then I'm pretty sure the last one is 12. But you've got in that, around the 12, you've got the 12 houses of astrology, which match up with your major body parts like your liver, genitals, kidneys, glands. And then in the next ring in is your planets, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter. Then you've got your that's right, yeah. It's a funny one, because what we did was we took, say, the 7 chakras and mapped them on the hexagon.
Oh,
so that way you've got the 6 chakras there, but the heart is actually in the middle of it. You know, so the planets are around the outside here, but the earth is in the middle of it. You know, so you've got this context point of 0 within the middle. Wood, earth, fire, the 4 elements, and then earth being the element that they all take place in is in the middle too. You know, so it's really interesting when you start to map across all these different spectrums, and doesn't matter whether you're talking astrology or biology, like, you know, Louise Hay or anybody else like this, everything somehow magically maps out if you align it correctly. And it's like, what the? You know, that's not the world I grew up in from high school. You know, it's meant to be the opposite of that. You know.
Oh, Enneagram. It's another good tool for condensing archetype stuff. Isn't that something that you were telling me about, Israel? Is that the thing you were telling me about? The Enneagram? No. That's the one I was talking about, and you were talking about something else. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, had to make sure.
Actually, you mentioned the archetypes, right? I went out and I got a hold of one of the first things I did when I come into Law of One was a deep dive into the tarot. So I've got the original cards that they mapped out and thingy drew out and everything else. And then I've got the frames that I can lay out for that, which is the 7x3 grid that we move through. So where you can map it out with your body, spirit. I can't remember the language that they use. Spirit, body, mind, which maps out over the 7 positions, your matrix, potentiator, catalyst, experience, significator, transformation, and then the great way. You know, and then how we sort of map through that in the 21 archetypes plus the Fool, because the Fool is the one that moves through the map of consciousness in all of it's absolutely fantastic. And of course, this all maps up perfectly with Carl Jung and everything else. And again, you sit there and go, it's amazing. It really is. It boggles my mind.
It is. Yeah. Mike, what are you doing? So I do regular. Oh, okay.
This is the first one, the classic magician.
Yeah. Rod talks about choosing what? Choosing the 3 types. You can follow the tree of life, the tarot, or another one they talk about too.
Astrology.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I like astrology a lot. It's got a lot to it. Again, like you said, it all resonates at some point. I want to do the tree of life. That seems pretty interesting.
I've been doing that a little bit, but I have a personal block with it because it misses the part. You know, like the tree of life has that giant hole in the middle of it. There's another lady who is Meredith Santakita who does the same sort of thing on the human body, and she's mapped out using Chinese medicine, your meridians, as well as the TMs from Taoism and some other stuff. And she's literally mapped a structure in the central column of the body that, when looked from straight up and down, down through the core like this from above, it looks like the Star of David because it's two pyramidal polygons that sort of run up the column here. And that covers our Sushumna, Ida Pingala, and the whole lot of them, and where they correlate with the different parts of our body. But when you look at it on a certain angle from the front side here, it looks like the Kabbalah Tree of Life, but with the extra piece added to it, which completes the whole structure and adds so much more balance and harmony and poetry to it. I've always been intrigued by the Kabbalah, but like I said, I just had this, I haven't done a deep dive into it because every time I look at it, I'm like, there's a piece missing.
Oh, that's super fascinating. I just started looking into the Kabbalah stuff like that too, but I haven't jumped in, dived yet. There's a lot, it needs my full attention if I'm going to.
I think the tarot will be my next one first before I do the tree.
In the sense of tarot, in the sense of,
because I was looking at that too, and it definitely, I was like, why is there, it's missing something when you look at the way that they even talk about it. But again, it's a part of that whole, like, what resonates with you with someone else, like, kind of pulls you this way to where you're gonna become more enlightened or more able to understand. So
I really love tarot. It speaks to me, and I communicate with the essence of it. It's not like I read the book and I read the context of the cards, but at the same time, it's like the understanding that I got from the law of one and how that maps and correlates, then I'm able to get downloads of what some people's stories are in their moment, or what they're going through at that time, or the relative context to that. The problem with that is that I don't get how that happens. Like, it's not wrapped up in a nice, neat little package. So I'll be sitting here doing a reading for somebody and I'll go, oh, you know, like a random example like this. And they'll go, that's exactly what's happening. You know, it's like, oh, I guess it wasn't random then. But it's one that speaks to me. You know, some people do the astrology and they can see past the limitation of the planets and into the essence of it, get into that. I feel like I do that with tarot. I've even had moments through, I'm a bit of a psychonaut, so been journeying in other places on psychoactive substances and things. And it was one conversation I had with the essence of whatever you want to call it, or communicate to or through with all of this sort of stuff, where it showed me how the tarot works for me, in the sense that it is the expression of my unconscious mind that I'm stacking the deck with. So, like, you know, you'll never see somebody who stacks a deck of cards stack a deck of cards. It looks like they're shuffling cards, right? But your unconscious mind is going, I'm going to rig this deck really good. You know, and then you go, wow, look at that. You know, actually, that seems to be the way that it works, at least from what I've been shown.
Oh, I'm not muted. Oh, great. I thought I was. I read tarot too. I haven't jumped into the law of one part of that aspect of it, but every way that you explain it, that's exactly how it works. I just know stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, I just know, and I'm like right into everybody's thing, and they're like, it's always been like that for me. I never really, I want to understand it more better from this perspective with the law of one and so on. It's a lot.
Yes, I about 20 years ago, I was given a tarot deck, and it incorporates Kabbalah and astrology on the tarot cards. So it's all three of those things in this one deck.
I got a deck just like that.
It's a German deck from 1983, I think.
Well, the minor arcana is astrology, and the major arcana is the archetypes of the human mind. So you get this framework of materials where you can frame what consciousness is doing and then how the universe around the consciousness is reacting to that point. And that's the major and minor arcana of the standard deck. Right? So in the tarot section of the cards, where they're asking Ra what's the difference between the original Egyptian tarot cards and the ones that we've got currently, they end up taking a lot of the astrological symbology out of the cards, because they're just focusing on the major arcana, which is the and you look at the cards and the cross of minor arcana, the suits that they fall in, where that maps across your natal chart in astrology, and the dates, the 365 days of the year and everything like this. It's all mapped out in beautiful, like the tarot is about 15 different things all laid into one, just by its own. Wow. But not many people sort of go that deep into it, you know.
Yeah, you were having a little volume problems there too, Trevor. You kind of muffled a little bit. I think we're having internet problems.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
That's what happens to us during our CE5s. Always something trying to interfere. You just don't let it. You ignore it. I was trying to find, so I just moved here, but I haven't unpacked everything. And I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm trying to, because I want to share with you guys the lines of everything you're talking about right now, where I started to learn where it brought me to the whole Kabbalah and everything going in with tarot and stuff, but I can't remember off the darn top of my head. It's driving me nuts. Every time I put myself in the spot, like I blank out. Give me a few minutes, it'll come back to me. Oh crap, it's 9:22. Oh wow, now I don't hear nothing.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. Everybody's muted. That's why I'm like, what happened? But
I have a story I would like to share with you, Desiree, maybe later or...
Okay. Whenever you want.
I don't know if I want to...
You don't have to. You can share it with just me if you want.
I don't know. Well, it'd be interesting for everyone in a way, too, but it's no major thing. It's more of you. Believe it or not, it's between you and me.
All right. Well, let's hear it.
All right. Let's hear it. So I spent 3.5 hours with my dad and my sister on Thanksgiving Day. I had to drive over 3 hours to get there, similar to you in a way. And so I'm just sitting there where everyone's chatting. There's maybe 8 adults there total. And my dad, who is 85 years old, having a lot of health problems, you know, his age is visible. He's deteriorating. And he's sitting there and he looks at me and he points at me and he goes, "There's this 22-year-old woman whose name has an S in it, and she likes your input on reincarnation." And I'm like, what? I had no idea what he was talking about. And he couldn't tell me where that came from, even.
Interesting.
So I just pulled out my phone real quick and I looked up names and such. And I noticed your last name has an S in it. And he said she has a nose ring.
Did he?
Yeah.
I wish I was 22 though. But
and
you know what? We'll just...
Yeah, that's all right. You look 22.
Wait, how old are you? Or do we have a 22-year difference? Maybe that's it.
We almost do. That's what I found kind of funny. But I showed him your picture that you have on your Facebook account, and he just yells. He goes, "That's her!" And
wow, that's so cool.
And where did you get this from, Dad? And somebody was talking about, you know, these people that talk to ghosts and stuff. Because his wife, my mother, died 2 years ago. So I was thinking the same thing. Like, what, is he getting messages from the beyond or what?
Could be.
And he just couldn't remember where it came from.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
It is, until I talked to my sister on the phone hours later. Yeah, I know. And she said, he was on Facebook looking at stuff, and he mentioned something about you talking about reincarnation. So I think it was
you know what?
Last week, you just said something about thank you for your input or something like that.
On Facebook, on the law, let me look, because I feel like I posted yep, right there. Here, I'll show you. Let me share this. Boom, 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 boom. Share screen.
But it's also weird because he doesn't go on Facebook.
I shared that. Yeah. I shared that the other day. But yes, either or, it doesn't matter how. It's true. I do very much enjoy your input. All of yours. So I still think, regardless on how it happened, whether it was told from some mysterious being or whatever, it still matters. It's still
relevant. Yeah.
Exactly.
But he doesn't go on Facebook really. He doesn't have a Facebook account. He uses his deceased wife's to look at every now and then. I might get a response.
Well, he would have to be in the Law of One group, though, for him to see that.
That's what I'm wondering, and he's not.
Interesting.
I don't know if any of our responses to each other and such in the Law of One ever goes out public. I've noticed a lot of people haven't been talking to me lately since June, or not, well, yeah, since about June when I started doing Law of One. Less people have been talking to me because I've been more vocal.
But that's not you. But that's not a you thing. It's a frequency thing, right? So those people that that are still stuck in those old ways, they're going to start falling off. You're going to see it's going to start separating. They're going to be further and further away, but it's not a bad thing, and it's not a nothing wrong with you thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just I'm going through more of that. Yeah, just so much more of it. Yeah.
Oh, I understand.
But that was funny. My dad brought that up, and then I thought of that too, because I knew you were 34, so 22 years, that's 56, and I'm 60. So
close enough.
There was something odd about that whole experience, though, that he points at me with this bony old finger, just saying, "You," and he mentions you, and it's like, that was weird.
Well, maybe you just needed to know in that time as well that you really are valued and your opinion does matter, and that there are people out there that care, and you're not alone.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Thank you. And I know that's true of the people that do read Law of One and take it to heart, literally and almost pun intended. Take it to heart. Yeah, we're learning about love and light. I mean, love is the essence of it all. So just being with you people here now and the others on the Facebook groups, it's amazing. There is a love that is connecting all of us together. And I feel so much more part of something bigger and better than I have before.
That's exactly how I feel. Exactly how I feel. You couldn't have said it any better. I'm in the same boat as you.
Nice. Yeah.
I really am. My closest people literally are in here right now. No, it's true. As Susanna, Amanda's not here right now. She's in Vegas. Lucky her. But I mean, we never met in person, but we are like, that's my family.
Comment would just come up there. iPhone brother, you're making a list over there.
Yeah.
What happened to your phone?
Israel.
No,
are you making LSD over there?
It's like 1 in the afternoon.
He said no. We can't hear you, Mike.
You're on mute.
You're muted, bro. You're muted. I just read some. Are you making hosting of golly? Then I realized what I just yelled out.
I said you're close. You got the wrong 3 letters, but I'm siphoning the DMT. I'm making DMT.
I don't know the recipe, so
yeah.
Sure.
Delicious stuff. Good on you.
Well, I'll show you. So if you can see the top layer, like oil and water, kind of, I got to siphon off that top layer. That top layer is naphtha, and the naphtha is what collects the DMT crystals out of the root, and then you put it in glass, and when you put it in the freezer, the DMT crystals stick to the glass. So then you pour out the naphtha, you dry it up, and then you got DMT crystals that you scrape off the glass.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna need to take a class with you, Mike.
It's pretty simple. And it's all legal. It's all legal to order online.
In some areas.
Okay, Jason, whoever you are, Jason, you're hilarious. He goes, that shit will take you right past go, collect 200, and go to full density.
Yeah, absolutely. I only tried it for the first time about 3 months ago, and it was phenomenal. It completely, like for many years I've taken mushrooms in order to be able to step outside the frames of my limitations and see what is potentially available. But I describe it like, I don't do regular doses of mushrooms. I'm talking large, doses. But I describe it as like mushrooms will show you the secrets of this side of the veil. DMT will take you to the other side of the veil where you'll get to see those secrets. So,
yeah.
I've never done DMT.
DMT is like taking 12 grams of mushrooms. It's almost the same reaction. It's a very high dose of mushrooms.
Have you guys read the Voices of Confederation? They talk about psychedelic use in the Voices of Confederation. They kind of like demonize it a little bit. They're like, you can take it, but you really shouldn't because it can cause distortions, I guess. Like if you take it, it obliterates and puts you in past the veil, drops the veil or whatever you want to call it, and can cause distortions. Like if you've seen too much or too fast along your path, you kind of rise to the top of the mountain.
It just takes away that like slow and steady and just like
straight
in. Here, jump off the cliff. It'll catch
it's almost like you bypass all the catalysts that along the way that you're supposed to learn grow from. And so like you can, I used to use a lot of psychedelics, but I kind of stopped because I was like, okay, I've seen too much, like almost. I was like, okay, I need to just work on myself and how I'm going to integrate. And
exactly what he just
threw off my
said,
yellow, I think, because I like started to detach from society a little bit. I was like, okay, earthling anymore. I was like, I just want to go back home.
No, you still got to do this experience.
Wherever I'm from. So yeah.
But he just brought that up. That came up last week. Remember, where it said when you bypass everything too quickly, it turns that positive learning thing into a negative because you're not. Yep. Awesome.
Which is about that later on too.
Yeah, that's a lesson in itself. Like you can't accidentally go overboard because that's obviously your path. So some people are like trying to get up the mountain. Some people go over the mountain and then go, oh, hang on a minute, I got to go back a little bit. So.
The thing about DMT, like you really don't learn much. You just see things. I mean, I can't imagine anything that will teach you anything. Like a self-dribbling basketball isn't going to teach you much.
I don't know.
That's why we're in third density. We're supposed to go through the time and space and space-time to quantify our feelings, emotions, and our experiences.
Yeah.
Carla talks about it later too, about her use of LSD and how she's like, some people it actually breaks and So she's very much on
Well,
that part where she's like, it's
You
not.
also you
don't do it
leave
if you don't have
yourself
to.
open. You leave yourself open for shit to come in that you don't want. You know, you got to be very careful. You got to respect the medicine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
That was kind of getting back to what I was going to share off the back of Robert's story. I've got my daughter, who's 3 years old. Her mum passed away in the house, and we had to deal with the loss of that and everything. About 6 months after she passed away, I got this message from a woman who I had never really communicated with on Facebook. And she sent me a message saying, hey, this might seem a bit weird and you're welcome to, block me or just refuse in any capacity. It's up to you. But I actually got visited by your ex-fiance, who is now on the other side last night. And she told me to reach out to you this morning and invite you into, she's a Peruvian shaman. And she asked me to study under her for a little bit. So I went through a shamanic course in doing that with her, and it was hugely amazing and aligns with all this other sort of stuff too. In short, I would say it's kind of like the expression of the shamanic archetype coming out of humanity at the moment because of the disconnection that we have with the world that we are a part of. The shamanic archetype is there to sort of root us back in that connection again, being able to communicate with nature and spirits and all the rest of that. So without that, I probably wouldn't have done the DNT because it was a huge ceremonial occasion for me. I was doing it by myself. So I spent half an hour blessing and creating an aura and an energy environment, making sure that my house and the spirit of my house was ready for what was about to happen and to watch over me and guide me through the whole process too. That I had, my connection with Ra, Quo, the whole lot of them, as well as everything else that I work with in their own individual capacities. So yeah, it's psychedelics are not something that you do on the weekends just for fun. A lot of people do, but they can be huge teachers if used under the right circumstance. And anything can hold lessons and messages in it. It's the fragmented mirror-based reality that we find ourselves in. Everything's connected, so everything in relativity to another thing holds in its own right everything in itself while in relation to everything else. So whether you're looking at tea leaves or whether you're looking at tarot cards or stars or numbers, looking at spirit numbers like 1111s and totem animals, you see an animal and you go, quick Google, what's the spiritual meaning of this animal? And it just matches up with what's going on in your life, So wherever you look, you're looking at the whole because it's all one. And it's the ability to see, like looking in the mirror, that you're not looking at you, that you're looking at the creator. And that doesn't mean you're the creator. It means the mirror is the creator, the light that's reflecting back and forward is the creator, the components of biology like the bacteria, the other biomes that we have all over our body and inside of our bodies, all of these things, are collectively the creator. So they're tools. They're not answers. They're tools, always. Not to be used by people who aren't ready for them, clearly. But you wouldn't hand a flamethrower to a child, for instance, as the case goes, or a chainsaw.
Trevor, I'm curious do you have like a meditation practice as well?
Yeah, I do meditation on a regular. Although I'm not good at it nowadays, that I tend to bring my meditation out of my meditation practice and try to embody it on a daily. So while I have trouble having any sort of real schedule, the schedules that I hold are more so for my daughter and her growth patterns. And I tend to follow the moment of the present now. So I get moments where I go, all right, I've got to meditate, and I'll sit down and things will happen instantly. I don't need to go through the breathing or anything else like this, but that's because I've spent years already developing these skills to get to this point. And so now with Ra and all these latest lessons that I've been learning, I can take that tiny aspect of myself and go, all right, sit aside for a minute while I get the in-streamings happen. And then I go, okay, well, that makes sense. So Are we done? Yeah, okay, cool. And then I'll go back to whatever I'm doing. But Zen is what helped me a lot in my path.
What was that? What did?
Zen. So Zen Buddhism. Whenever I meditate, I think of nothing, and I sit in blackness and that type of thing. So I connect with, rather than connecting with, like, because I've gone through, looked at past lives and star families and all the rest of this sort of stuff, and I've got memories, like, not I don't remember all my past lives like Stephanos, but I have awareness of many of them in different capacities and how they interact with and influence my current space in this time. I can't remember where I was going to go with that, but the Zen part is where I disidentify with this part of myself or that part of myself. I don't think of myself as from this planet or this planet. Or, I mean, I am an earthling here right now in this body, but at the same time, I'm also aware of the fact that I'm the collection of the creator, which is in my capacity to be able to communicate no thing, not nothing, no thing, that thing that can't enter into this environment without being everything all at once. So Zen is where I got a lot of my meditation practice from, down those routes.
Awesome. Well, guys, we literally went to almost 2 hours, which I do not mind at all. I'm just letting you know. So if any of y'all need to go, want to go, we can go end this. We can right now. Next Friday will be on time on Friday. Does either one work better for you guys? Is it Friday or Saturday? Or is it just fine the way that it is?
I am fine any day of the week right now. I have nothing but time.
Okay. Yeah, I just tried. I wanted to like be as accommodating as possible, but also just, I mean, I can only do so much, right? I'm only one person at this moment.
I was heading home last night on the bike, and I stuck my headset in and I went to get on, and I was literally going to listen while I was riding down the road on the bike. But I guess I'm home tonight. So.
Well, good.
It's good seeing everybody again.
Yes, you too. Thank you for coming.
I never know how my weeks go, and my weekends get pretty busy.
Well, you know what? I decided to start recording them so that I could just post it, so that other people that can't make it, they could still kind of be part of it.
I just want to point out, TJ's had a beautiful blue light on his throat chakra the whole time as well, if you haven't noticed that.
Yeah, from his Bluetooth.
My Bluetooth is on.
Yeah, but it's perfect though. He's right. Your throat chakra.
Right in the line.
All right, guys. Well, thank you. I'm gonna close it on out. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. And until next week.
Till next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.